You guys, I've read a lot of books in my life. A handful of those books that I read, one of the things that took me right off the bat was how he's talking about Michelangelo grave robbing. And I was like, immediately, I was like, I'm going to love this book. This is going to be a great book. And then one of the other big things that I had from this book that I took away was I don't have to have justification for what I want. I want what I want, and I don't have to justify it to anyone else. And I kind of wanted to see what your guys' overall takes and feedback was from the book before we really start diving in.
I would bring up that Dan Sullivan, if you guys have never followed him, he's got a great podcast called Strategic Coach, and that's his coaching program as well. He's an incredible entrepreneur, and I've learned a lot from him over my last 6 years or so. And all of the Benjamin Hardy, Dan Sullivan books are good. And I think Chris will get into those a little bit later, but reading every single one, the Gap versus Gain book is probably one of the best things. They talked about a little bit in chapter 5 of this, or chapter 4, I think. But as soon as you get out of that gap versus gain mindset, it makes a big difference for you as an entrepreneur, because when we start to look backwards on things that we've accomplished versus what we're trying to accomplish moving forward, you tend to get more done and you don't burn out as much. Because if you're always looking forward at the gap, which is like, hey, we hit $1 million this year, and next year we're going to try to hit 2 million. Instead of saying that, say, hey, we hit $1 million this year. Let's look back at what we did to get to the $1 million and celebrate that. When you switch your mindset to that, you don't burn out as much. You're never depressed about not hitting your goals or your decisions and what you want to do with your business. But there's a whole book dedicated to that. So I'd recommend, if you liked chapter 4 of this book, to go back and read that one. It's a huge, huge just mindset shift. I've listened to that book multiple times. I listen to it every year because it's such a good reminder. I also, every quarter, look back at that quarter and write down in this document I've had since 2015 on everything I accomplished that quarter. They're me, my team, personally, business life, everything. And it's fun because I can go back to 2015 and see what my accomplishments were there. And because I keep track of it all the time, and I put my life lessons learned and everything, but I constantly focus on the gain that I've had versus that gap. And it's made it so I don't burn out as much. So Gap versus Gain, if you like chapter 4, go back and read that book too by the 2 authors. And then the Who Not How is a big principle as well. They have a whole book written on that too. And if you really want to grow your business, you got to think of who can help you do that. And 10xing your business is so much easier than doubling it, because of you focus on like who you can partner with that could 10x your business, like an influencer, JV partner relationship. Instead of just focusing on getting on the next customer, it makes a massive difference for you. And it's the same amount of effort, if not less effort, to go after the who, not how. So those are my 2 big takeaways from it. And then going back to, you can read more books about it. And it really helped us kind of focus our agency. We raised our prices recently, and we ended up losing about 7 clients as a result of that price raise. It ended up being 6 clients as a result of that price raise. But it was something that we had to do so we could focus on the clients that we have still. And it allowed our account managers to free up their mind more to be able to focus on growth for the higher end clients, for the ones that we want to be serving. And what we noticed is those lower end clients, they just were a lot of work. And they're kind of relying on us as the agency to build their whole business, versus like higher end clients where we're just a cog as a part of their machine instead of we are the machine. And so a big difference there. And that's why we raised our fees in the agency.
I love it. I actually read The Gap and the Gain a couple months back, and I reread it a couple months back, and I loved it. If you guys haven't read it, definitely check it out. I'd love to hear what Greg thought about the book. We were actually talking on Greg's call on Tuesday. I hopped on his call and we talked about the book a little bit, but I kind of wanted to get his feedback on it on my call.
Absolutely. So when I picked up this audiobook, I think because I saw Travis post about it on Facebook, and I was like, oh, cool. Ben Hardy and Dan Sullivan have a new book out. So I'm a big fan of their previous 2 as well. Both have definitely changed how I think about things, how I think about the world. And I think this thing did the same thing. So we all want 10x, what we're working on, but we just get like 2x is a trap. Like we get stuck there. I love the message of the book, but what I took away from it is actually a question. And it's an important question that that Ben Hardy addresses. But I think the answer is the most important takeaway from this. And it's, how do you know what is 10x versus what is 2x? How do you objectively assess what we should be focusing our efforts on and the things that we need to cut away? And of course, we can do that, for business, we can do that purely based on revenue. And I think there is some value in that. But when we're looking at applying this principle to ourselves, like to our entire lives, our relationships, ourselves as human beings who want to achieve 10x growth and improvement versus 2x, I think it becomes a lot more difficult. And so the answer to that question, I think, is the key to getting real value out of this book. And so the consideration of that question is what I have been honestly thinking about ever since. I finished the audiobook about a week ago. And so I've been kind of doing an inventory of my life and my business and everything I'm working on. And I'm like, what is looking at every single relationship I have, every single source of revenue I have, is this 10x or is it 2x? And the sobering reality is that most of what I'm doing is 2x. My biggest this is the part that sucks for me, is that honestly, looking at this, my biggest revenue drivers are 2x activities, which on one hand, hey, what amazing opportunity I have when I actually focus on the 10x. But on the other hand, it's the realization that I actually am going to have to cut all of those things out of my life in order to hit the 10x stuff. But it's hard to cut the 2x stuff when it's generating revenue. You know what I mean? You want to sub in the 10x stuff first before you cut 2x stuff, but you can't always do that. And so then I think you need to make some really, really hard decisions sometimes about, hey, this thing over here, it's bringing in this much, and to cut it is a little bit scary, but it's necessary in order to do this thing that I actually want to do. So assessing where we place our time, where we place our attention and energy, and what it yields to us, both in terms of revenue or personal growth or whatever else. So yeah, that's my takeaway. Loved the book.
I appreciate it, Greg. No, I completely agree with what you're saying. I know the author does a real good job of talking about how if you cut out all the 2x work and only focus on the 10x work, eventually you'll get to a place to where your old 10x work is now your new 2x work. And then if you want to, you got to focus on the next 10x work. And he describes this several times through stories of people starting off as a low end job and then finally rising to become a manager of the entire state. Michelangelo was another example. And he does this, I think, a few good times. So it could be very scary because a lot of people find the idea of going 10x kind of confusing because it's easier to say, I'm going to make $1 million than it is to say, I'm going to make $10 million, Yeah.
But really the challenge, the fear, Travis, you mentioned you cut 6 clients who were 2x. It's hard to cut 6 clients who are 2x when you only have 7 clients total. And I feel like that's kind of the position I find myself in. I have a lot of 2x work. It's the majority of my revenue generating activities. I want the revenue generating activities to be 10x work, but to clear time and space, attention and energy to do that, I have to cut some of the 2x stuff first before it's replaced by 10x stuff. That's the challenge, moving from one to the other when that cut is painful.
Hey, it's Dr. Travis Ziegler, and I wanted to thank you for watching this video. I just wanted to take a brief couple seconds to let you know about a free Amazon PPC Masterclass that I have. Just head to profitablepineapple.com to sign up for that free Amazon PPC Masterclass, or you can click the link down below in the description. I'll see you inside.
No, I agree. Adam, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, Greg, it's kind of funny that you say that, but I have found in my life several times, and Travis knows these times in my life, that 2x stuff I got taken out of. And it's just sometimes funny how sometimes the universe just works and it fills in that 2x automatically with 10x stuff. So, get uncomfortable for 3 months and you'll be surprised 3 months later on, and you're like, oh, wow, I just did it. And you get so freed up with your mind space, what you want, your mindset, all of that. And it's going to shovel right in for you. It's yeah, it's hard because you're kind of like, because sometimes in life that we've had a previous experience, a lot of times the humans previous experience, shifts us to how we're going to act in that next time. And for example, I used to be a teacher here in Mexico at a private school, good school, but I was making like between 800 and 1,000 a month. And I have 15x my life here with the agency. And then, so I've already done it once. So then now I'm comfortable with leading a new division for the agency to 10x it already. So this is a perfect time for me to read this book as well, because now I have a team member in place for us to do this to 10x it as well. So it's it'll happen for you.
And I think for anyone who's on the fence and who's struggling with the idea, the first part of the book really kind of sums up this problem very well, in my opinion. The first part of the book was all about how surprisingly simple 10x growth can be, with the main insight of the first chapter of the book being that while 2x does seem easier than 10x growth, 10x is actually easier because you're only focusing on a few things that actually grow yourself and your business and your brand and whatever your goals are. 10x. I mentioned before, the book starts off with Michelangelo talking about how he wanted to be an artist. His dad wanted him to be a doctor, but he wanted to be an artist. So he lied to his dad. He got whatever money he could, and then he started grave robbing. He started grave robbing and studying the human anatomy and taking apart bodies and doing all sorts of weird stuff that's very taboo at the time, kind of taboo today too, for being honest. But then he just
not even taboo, it was death sentence.
Yeah, it was very bad. But he did it, and he learned how to sculpt really well. And then he started taking on impossible projects that he didn't know if he could complete or not. And then he just started doing it. And one of the things he mentioned in the book was when somebody asked him how he carved the statue of David, I think it was, he said, I just removed all the pieces that the David wasn't there. With incremental growth, everything does seem important, and it is really hard to identify the things you need to stop doing. But once you kind of set your 10x goals and you set those impossible goals, you force yourself outside of your current level of knowledge and assumptions that you have on yourself, which is ultimately holding you back. By doing so, you do find that while there are many paths to incremental results, there are actually only very few paths that will get you to the 10x results. Therefore, gaining the clarity around the activities and the people in your life that produce the most critical results. The corollary of this book is that 10x growth requires eliminating 80% of all your existing clients, your roles, your behaviors, your mindsets that are holding you back. And some of the easiest ways to do this is you don't have to get rid of it out of your life, but just delegate it or automate it to somebody else, whether that's a VA or another team member or somebody else, to where, they might not do it 100% as good as you, but as long as it gets done, they will learn and they will grow and fill in that position. What makes 10x so much easier and simpler is that it requires so much less effort than actually going 2x. And the challenge is to have the courage to just let go of the 80% of things. Kind of like what Greg was saying. You have to be brave and you have to let go of the things that just doesn't seem important to you anymore. It doesn't mean that you drop them entirely. It just means you let somebody else kind of take them on. Looking back at your past, I want to kind of ask this to the group. Looking back at your past, what is it? It's impossible to connect the dots going forward, but it's easy to look at them going back. So where have you seen in your life that you've already made the 10x jumps?
So I'll go. I think for us, most of you guys know our story. When I was reading this book, and looking back, it was like, this is exactly what we did with I Love in a way. We were practicing optometrists, seeing one patient every 30 minutes, every hour sometimes, and we had this opportunity to learn how to sell online, which is a much quicker way, a much faster way to make money. The potential for, much higher income was there versus seeing a patient in an hour. You're not going to make very much money doing that, but I can sell how many products in that 1 hour and help that many more people in that 1 hour of time. And so at the time, I didn't think of it as this is going to be 10x or anything like that, but that's exactly what it was. We used our expertise that we already had with a few extra skills, to help a lot more people and make a lot more money.
The simpler version of that is even going back further before we were even optometrists. and we were in optometry school, we probably were making, I don't think you had a job, and I had a job that paid me maybe 5,000 a year. So I went from 5,000 a year to making almost 100,000 a year. So that's a 20x jump. And it may seem so simple and like, yeah, you got your degree, but yeah, that's a 10x jump. Is I went from making $5,000, spending 40,000 on my degree, to then making 100,000 and then paying off the massive amount of debt we had.
That's awesome, you guys. What about Justice? I want to hear from Justice. He's always calling on us. I'm going to call on him.
Biggest jump? When was the time that I went from 10x, from 2x to 10x? Or is Doc like to show going from 0x to 20x? Did you guys see that humble brag he threw in there? He went 20x. Yo.
Okay.
Look, I'm trying as hard as I can, man. What if 10x is all I can do, Doc? Jeez.
I was making $15 an hour.
5,000 a year to 100,000. That's a book right there, just so you know. That is your next book. So, okay, so the biggest jump I made was I never really thought about like, how do I go 10x? Like, and as you guys were going through this, a question that I had, maybe for everybody else, but was how many of us are clear on what 10x looks like outside of revenue? Most of us is like, oh yeah, it's easy. 10 times what I'm currently bringing in a year, I'll take it. But rarely is that when people are going 10x, is that how they're looking at it? So to answer your question, not with another question, the biggest jump happened for us when I had no other option. No other option. And I wouldn't even say I was shooting for 10x. I think it was just I was desperate. It was like there's survival where you get comfortable, which I think is just another mode of survival where you're like, bills are paid, money's in savings, one person's working. This is great. I think that is just another mode of survival. It just, you don't feel the pain as much unless there's an emergency, a big emergency. Then you go crazy. And I was at a point where we had to go crazy or things were not going to work out. We were behind on our rent. I was a hot mess mentally. It was just insane. And so the only thing I could do was offer what I had, what didn't make sense for other people, and people wanted it and they bought a lot of it. And so it wasn't like this cognitive, like I got to go 10x, which is great. I think everyone should. We were just like, we went from comfortable to, oh crap. And then I had to go, what do I got? Or we're not going to have a place to live. And like our car broke down. You guys ever had it where like everything that can go wrong does? It was like car breaks down, kids are sick, rent is late, everything it just hit an apex. And I was like, I got to freaking figure this out. Never buy a hybrid. That was what I learned. If you want to go 20x, either go all electric or go all gas. Don't go in the middle. Took a lot to fix that little CT200H that I no longer have. But yeah, that's what it looked like for us.
Well, now you tell me because I have a hybrid car.
Do you really?
Yeah, I do.
Either go Tesla or go gas. That's the way. That's what I learned from it.
Tesla's my next step.
Go Tesla or go gas.
John, you have your hand raised.
So I had a VA agency. This is 12, 13 years ago. And so we were just helping all business owners. And it was a hot mess, as you can imagine, because I was trying to translate the business to overseas teams and stuff like that. And when I focused on just one niche within that, one of my better clients, it totally changed the business. And it went from just paying all the bills to being financially successful. And so now I just had a last week or 2 weeks ago, amazing call with Justice. And I kind of got into a hot mess again where I'm in a bunch of different online businesses. And so now I need to do the same thing and really niche down and focus on one. So, but it's challenging. Like I really love this book. And, I told Travis, you know what, these books are amazing, just amazing. And so that's what I'm doing now is trying to figure out, okay, what's the 80% that I'm doing that can get me to 10x in one of these businesses in which has the most potential. And now trying to figure out what to do with the 20% that's making me money, but it's hard to hand that off sometimes. So.
No, I get that. I think one of the easiest things you can do that might be able to help if you haven't done it already is to just sit down and make a list of everything you do in a day and then everything you do in a week, like everything, and then just be like, hey, what is eating up my time? What can I get rid of? What can go to a VA? And I know the author says, what if I can't afford a VA? And then he counters that with, you can't not afford a VA if you want to go 10x. You can't not afford to hand off some of these tasks. The second part of the book really dove into what 10xing was all about. And the author really hit on 10xing is really the quality of everything you do. And by focusing on your mastery and doing a few things just extraordinarily well, you'll be far more effective than doing many things at just a commonplace level. He demonstrates this very well, in my opinion, when he describes Jimmy Donaldson, who's also known as Mr. Beast online. And Mr. Beast, in an interview once said, it's better to make one really good video a year and put that out there than to make one okay video every single day. And the reason is because YouTube videos, especially, they go off view time. So if you can get your view time and you can get your watch rate up, but just about 10% better than everybody else, you're not going to go 10 times. You're going to go exponentially. You're going to go 15, 20 times the number of views, and it's going to really curve it up there. So in other words, increase the quality of what you're doing, not necessarily the quantity of what you're doing.
This is something that we took to heart with our YouTube channel, and I met with a YouTube channel expert. And Chris, Jamel, and I have really been working on our YouTube channel. You guys will see some changes to it once our content catches up, but it will start to catch up probably in about 2 or 3 weeks. But we just shot for 10% better. That's all we wanted to do, is 10% better on our videos. So we changed our thumbnails. We started split testing thumbnails and using thumbnails that some of the biggest YouTubers out there are using, and that's black background, whoever the talking head is in the video. Most of the time it's me, but sometimes it's Justice, and Tony's starting to get involved. You'll start to see Melissa's face as well. And we put their face really big with a black background and then like bold letters. And that split test was almost double the click-through rate of our previous thumbnails. And so that's double the views. And so that was a big step for that. But when you start to get double the views, then you start to move up in the organic rank. It's just like Amazon's ranking. And so then you start to get more and more views. Something else we did is my camera. So it was funny because I got a comment on one of my videos, because I just used, well, this camera obviously is my laptop, but at my home computer, I was lazy. I was just using the camera that comes standard with it, which is only like 540 camera. And so I ended up buying an AI camera that is 1080p, and it's a beautiful camera and it works really well. And it also has software to make it even better. So again, that's pretty much doubling the value, the quality of the actual video. And it looks a lot better. It just looks crisp, it looks clear, it looks professional versus the crappy one before. And then we figured out this little link that you could do. So if you guys notice, when you click on our YouTube videos in our emails, it will take you to the video, of course. But if you look to the right, it shows you what's next, and it's all our videos. So we added this special URL to our YouTube links that then some people like to just click on your video and then start listening to it in the background. So instead of going to what YouTube suggests, it actually goes into a playlist of all our videos. And then it goes into, they just keep watching all our videos. And then that gives the algorithm juice more. We implemented these changes about 28 days ago, and our views are up 50% and our watch hours are up 50%. So it's made a huge difference for us by just focusing on like, what could we make 10% better with our YouTube channel? And with the help of Jamel and Chris, it's been a huge difference. And to go on top of that, this even more, I saw that what I needed to do for YouTube was, thanks to Justice for helping point this out, is I need to tell my story more and relate it to others, which means coming out with more content. So we used to only put a video out on Monday. We're now doing a video Monday, video Thursday, and then we're doing shorts on Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. And I didn't want to do all that work. And it's like, how am I going to figure this out to like not have to do all this work? The Monday video is typically a repurposed content from the farm. Not quite. We don't get everything that's in this farm call on there because we do that on purpose. We want people to join the farm call, be here live, and these don't go out for 3 months or so after. But that's the Monday video. The Thursday video, I'm trying to bring in a team member instead of me having to do it all. it's either me interviewing a team member or the team member just doing it themselves. So Tony's stepped up to do that. Melissa is going to start getting involved here very shortly with that. And if anybody else ever wants to on the team, they just let me know and we'll get them on the channel. So that's usually a Thursday video. And then we found an app called opus.pro. Write that one down. It's very helpful if you're doing YouTube. You can actually plug your YouTube video into opus.pro and it generates shorts for you. Are they great? Are they perfect? No, but they're really good. And I would say it bats about 50%, and it's best for talking head videos. So like face to camera, interview style talking. It's not good for screen sharing because it just doesn't make sense with the short. But it's good for talking head videos. It does a really good job with that. So like Justice's mindset videos breaks down really well with those shorts. So we eliminated the need for anybody to do shorts. We just do it with opus.pro. We've delegated one of the video creations to somebody else on the team. And then I've trained Chris to help optimize the channel and Jamel as well. And so who, not how, is how we're getting this done. And I even promote, I tell Chris, I'm just like, hey, if you can delegate stuff to Jamel, then figure it out and do it. So then you can focus on higher level activity within the channel as well.
No, I appreciate that, Travis. Yeah, and to kind of add on to that as well, just for everyone's knowledge, before Travis started teaching me stuff on YouTube, I didn't know what I was doing at all. I was like, yeah, okay, you upload a video, you hit submit and you go. So, just after following this book, I'm just doing very small things. Like I signed up for a free YouTube course that's just teaching me about hashtags and best posting times, very small things that you can do to just kind of help boost stuff without taking away from your overall daily work. And then eventually I plan on teaching that on to other team members and handing that off as well. But the assertion that the book gives is that 10x goals are genuinely easier to reach than 2x goals because they're less competitive and they require you to go deeper on just a handful of few things rather than broad on a lot of things. Jen, yep, off the top of my head, I don't recall what the course name is, but I'll make a post about it and I'll put it out there. But so putting it another way is 10x doesn't really require you to be 10 times better than everyone else, but it does commit you to just start down a path of mastery. And is therefore it's more about your aggressive plan than anything else. So just a real quick question I had down here for the group. Where in your life do you feel that you can get rid of 80% of the things and only focus on the top 20%? I'm going to pull a Justice, you guys. I'll start calling.
I'll start for some simple things that people don't think about, and maybe they do. Grocery shopping. You can easily hire somebody to grocery shop and deliver your groceries for you. It costs $5 and it saves you 2 hours of your day. So grocery shopping is a big one. Something more specific to our life is my son is obsessed with Legos. He's 5 years old. He can build nonstop for hours. And it creates a lot of stress in our house because there are Legos everywhere. So we hire a high school student to come in every 1 to 2 weeks. And this high school student literally takes all the Legos apart and categorizes them by color for us. This is something that Jen and I used to do. And I was like, pay a high school student to do it. And he comes over, does it, and he loves it because he's like, this is so cool to see all his creations, and he loves doing it. And then we also yard work. Yard work is huge. And we just hired 2 high school students to come over and pull our weeds. It took them 4 hours, 2 people, 4 hours to pull all our weeds. We're in a construction zone, so it gets really bad. But those are the little things and the easiest things that you can start with just around your house are things that you hate doing. Cooking, meal prep, that's another good one. And then when it comes to actual business, think about what your unique ability is, what you should be focusing on to grow your business, and train other people to take the rest off your plate, but then also train them to think bigger as well. Because the bigger you train your team, the bigger your organization will become, and empower them to hire an assistant to help them think bigger as well.
That's awesome. Something that I planned on outsourcing for myself in the brand that I'm starting is I eventually want to reach out to a bunch of influencers and YouTubers, Instagram people who fit my ideal customer to have them potentially partner or sponsor the new product that I'm going to be launching here on my new brand. So instead of doing all that work myself, all the research and the email and everything like that, I'm just going to hire that out. I'm going to hire that to a VA. I'm going to type up a template email, give them some clear directions, let them take care of all of that marketing, reaching out for me. And then if that influencer responds back, then I'll handle it from there. Like that's something simple in your business that you can just hand off right away if that's something you're spending a lot of time doing. I'm gonna push on real quick just because we're close to time. So there's only like a few parts left of this book, but the next part of the book really embraced on 10x, embraces abundancy and rejects scarcity. So overall, that chapter of the book suggested that you don't really need 10x, but if you get clear on your purpose, then you might want it enough to decide to pursue the mastery in your own unique ability. It's what we most have to give. And this chapter opens up with an interesting discussion on needing versus wanting. And this was what I said in the beginning about one of my biggest takeaways from the book, because needing is a scarcity mindset based around our sense of what we have to justify to other people and why we want what we want. We assume that if we want something, then somebody else will not have it. Instead, we take the wanting approach in life and we set ourselves to the 10x goals. So the reality is that we never need 10x goals, but we might want them. And if you want them, there's nothing wrong with that. Step into the ownership in order to achieve it. The one thing that I did love about this section of the book is that I felt like it just gave me permission to say what I wanted and to not be ashamed or upset because I wanted these things. But I want to serve and help veterans. I want to have an 8-figure brand. I want to make a difference in the world. And when I tried to explain these wants to other friends of mine who are not entrepreneurs, they're just like, why? Why would you want that? Why would you do that? You think you're better than everyone else? And it's just like, no, I want what I want. And there's nothing wrong with wanting that. And you don't have to justify what you want to anyone. Just because you want them, it doesn't matter what anyone else says. So if you can, just go ahead and put in the comments, what is it that you want? What is it you want out of your business? What is it you want out of your life that you feel like you might not have permission to go after? Because I'm telling you right now, I'm giving you permission. Look at Justice. Justice is giving you permission. Look at the Zieglers. They're giving you permission. I see Justice drinking. So the chapter then continues to explore the idea of mastery, linking it to the idea of a unique ability. This is the way in which people provide the most value for other people, and that nobody could ever replicate it, or even if they wanted to. Your unique ability probably shows up in many different areas throughout your entire life. So it's important not to limit to a very specific teaching or writing or counseling or leading. You are the only one who can be you. You are the only person who can bring what you bring to the table. And when you have the confidence in your mastery, you should be liberated from having to constantly sell yourself. Instead, adopt the buyer mindset. And the buyer mindset only pursues opportunities and collaborations that fit your 10x goals. So whenever you're going into a meeting or you're going into something and you're nervous about it, adopt the buyer mindset. They're here to buy you. You're not here to sell them. If they don't see your value and they don't see, if they're not willing to buy you essentially, then don't worry about it. It wasn't a good fit, and continue on, because eventually you're going to meet those people who will drool over you, who will say, man, you're the pretty girl at the dance. I want to dance with you. And I don't know if you guys can tell or not, I've never really been the pretty girl at the dance. But once you get out of the scarcity mindset, you can finally start setting a lot of clear boundaries and standards for yourself. For example, like, what is the minimum value that you are prepared to accept for your services, whether that's financial or otherwise? What kinds of opportunities will you accept, and what opportunities will you reject? Then the last part of the book here really talks about uncovering your 10x past to clarify your 10x future. And I know we already kind of hit on this about looking back in the past to see where you've already made those 10x jumps. But it's important to really identify those wins so you don't live in the gap and you do live in the gain. I know Dr. Ziegler mentioned that it's a great book, The Gap in the Game. I love the fact that they touched up on it again in this book, because it gave me a sense of reflection. It's something that I kind of forgot about. And as soon as it mentioned it, I was like, I've been living in the gap. I got to start living back in the game. So this part of the book talks about how many high achievers are prone to constantly being frustrated and unsuccessful, regardless of how much they achieved. And that's because they're measuring themselves toward all the goals they set for themselves. You will never fully reach your goals, because once you reach your goal, the next goal is set even higher. And you're constantly comparing yourself to the top of the mountain instead of looking back and seeing how far you've already climbed. But these goals and ideals don't really matter, I guess, when you're looking at the comparison, because it's what you've accomplished and not necessarily what you're working towards that really matters. Instead, you need to measure yourself against where you've been. Don't measure yourself against your ideals. The importance of reviewing progress against your various timeframes is the fact that to the last day or the last week or the last year, you can look back. Travis had mentioned he can look back at 2015 and say exactly what he accomplished during that time. The chapter does go on to further encourage you to look back at your 10x leaps. Again, it's important to remember that 10x is qualitative, not quantitative. So 10x leaps for Benjamin Hardy included being accepted for a PhD, getting married and starting a family, becoming a paid author, etc. He's able to look back on his life and see these milestones and feel more confident about himself, to feel better about himself. So I just wanted to pose the question to you. What are your 10x leaps? Go home tonight, write down in your journal. Justice has 7. Just ask him to borrow one, and write down what your 10x leaps were. And then you can see that you are a winner. You have made a lot of progress. And then finally, the last thing I just wanted to touch up on here was the very last part of the book does talk a lot about recovery, prioritizing recovery, and making sure you take your 150 plus free days a year. The overall message of this chapter was that the days when you don't think about your business are the days where you achieve your 10x goals a lot faster. How many times have you had a breakthrough while sitting in front of your computer? And then how many times have you had a breakthrough when you're standing in the shower or going on a walk? In order to achieve your 10x growth, you have to be able to budget your time well and really take those days off. And when blocking your time off, you really got to focus on days for working for your high value activities, the 20% that'll get your 10x goals. Make sure you include some buffer days in there, which is dealing with the other necessary tasks that aren't your unique ability. And then your free days when you don't actually focus on the business, which allows you to recover, explore new ideas, relax, and connect. The author of the book, he talks specifically about how when he has a day off, his team does not contact him. He turns his phone off, he blocks them. They do not contact him unless it's like an absolute emergency, because he needs that recovery time. And because he has that recovery time, he's able to come back in fresh and ready to go. Because the counterintuitive truth is that the more free days you actually take, the more successful you're likely to be. Innovation and mastery require you to be rested, creative, and exploring the ideas outside of your domain, and letting go of the low value 80% activities that give your team that don't work for you. It gives your team the gift of not being there and allows them to just become masters themselves. The example the book gives is it talks about LeBron James. And personally, I'm not a LeBron James fan. I was a Kobe fan. But the reason LeBron James has been able to be so successful is because he prioritizes his recovery. He actively sleeps 8 to 10 hours a night. He stretches 3 to 4 times a day. He doesn't even think about basketball when he's not playing basketball. And this has allowed him to be better at the sport and last longer in the game than many people his own age. So the chapter overall is built around building your transition of your entrepreneur self. It's built around how you start off at level 1, which is like a rugged individualist. Then you move up to a manager, then a leader, and then a leader who basically 10x's yourself out of the business. You become such a master in your craft and delegating the 20% that eventually you 10x yourself out of the business, and then you can just sit back and watch it grow. I wanted to try and rush through that last part mainly just so we make it on time, but that was my review of the book. I'd love to hear your guys' feedback here as we wrap up the call. Randy, what did you think?
I can go. Alex has his hand raised, but I'll go.
Oh, I didn't see you, Alex. I apologize.
You're good. So yeah, I just wanted to quickly touch on the gap and the gain part. Mainly because like that resonated with me a lot, mainly because I used to be in the gap a lot until I started doing this one strategy that I wanted to share. So it's kind of similar to what Travis does, but really it's kind of like a vlog and it's a year in review type thing that I've been doing since 2019. And at the end of each year, basically, I sit down in front of a camera and I just kind of talk about the wins, losses, everything that's happened in the year. And then I do that every single year. So, and then before I actually film the next one, I looked at the last 3 years. And this past year, when I was going through all the last few videos I did, it was funny because I was looking at 2019. I was, you know, at a 9-to-5 in a corporate job. I was, you know, living in Plano, Texas. No disrespect to Plano. It's a great town. I had a manager that I hated. And I remember, and I was much overweight. And I remember like basically saying, I was like, man, like, I don't know any entrepreneurs, literally no one. I'm the only entrepreneur that I know. And I was like, I really would love to be in Bali one day. And I was like, but I have no idea how I'm going to do that. And so like tracking those videos every single year has literally changed my mindset and made me way more grateful for every single time or each year that I make the video. So yeah, definitely recommend doing something similar to that because it's pretty big. So
Thanks for sharing that, Alex. I think it's a great idea. I never heard of doing that before. I've done the whole where you write stuff down, write down your wins and your losses, but I've never thought of making a video on it. That's a nice idea. What about Jen? I want to hear from Jen and Tony.
I love, like you mentioned in the beginning of the call, I love the idea of giving ourselves permission to want. It's okay to want what you want. And it is very, very easy to feel guilty for wanting more. You know, it's just kind of internally built into us to feel guilty for certain things. And that really, really resonated with me, is that we do want more. We do want to live in Bali. We've lived there. We spent a couple months there and we want to get back there, and it's okay to want that. It is okay to want those things. It helps to drive you forward and make you a better person. So the book really resonated with me in a lot of different ways. That was the big one.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for sharing. As we kind of wrap up this call, I did want to just do a little housekeeping notes for you guys. So next month, we're going to be moving book club to the last Monday of the month instead of the regular weekly Wednesday calls, mainly just so we can fit those Wednesday calls in for other high-level entrepreneurs and other things we can give back to you guys. And then we'll make the book club call a bonus call. So I wanted to kind of pose it out to you guys, since you guys are the ones who showed up to the call. Next month, would you rather read Clockworks or would you rather read Who Not How? I think both would be a good transition after reading this book.
If you enjoyed this video, you're going to love the Profitable Pineapple Farm. What is that? It's our weekly mastermind where we meet to discuss challenges in your businesses. We put you on the hot seat. We go over best practices and hacks. We go over mindset opportunities and much, much more. Head to profitablepineapplefarm.com to join us. Again, profitablepineapplefarm.com to join us. If we're not open at the time, just join the wait list. Hey, I wanted to thank you for watching this video, and I picked out another video just for you. So make sure you check out that other video. And what do they need to do? Do they need to like and subscribe?
Yeah.
Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this content. What do you think?